They do exempt one vehicle for you to drive, but if you have any additional vehicles, that can count to your resource limit. Cash in your bank account, those types of things. And then that's for an individual. If you are a couple, you can have up to $3,000 in resources. And Social Security is unfortunately very strict about this resource limit. So even say if you have $2,100 in your bank account on any given month, that actually would be a month that you are not entitled to benefits, and they can determine that you were overpaid if they paid you for that month. So yeah, we're gonna get into all of that. So many people, they can be eligible for both programs. It's called dual eligibility. So you might be eligible for SSI benefits for disability and also entitled to Social Security disability benefits as well. And so they'll split the amount and give you that benefit. Then there's also the Social Security disability benefits. And now this pays to people who are considered insured. So those are people who have enough earnings and work credits to qualify for disability payments. And it will increase your benefit, sometimes only a little bit more than the $967. But at any rate, it's because you have worked and paid into the system, so to speak. You have to have at least 40 credits, which is basically working 10 years prior to qualifying for disability to be able to qualify for those benefits. And because they're based on your earnings, there's no maximum amount that you can receive. So everyone's Social Security disability can be different. Some people's can be as low as $1,000 a month. Some people's could be as high as $3,500 a month based on what type of job they were performing and what kind of income they made over the course of their employment and career. While the two programs are different, the medical requirements are the same. So if you're disabled for under one program, then you're disabled under another. And again, these are for people where they expect your disability to last at least 1 year or possibly result in death or, be a terminal issue. Those Social Security disability benefits, they're also considered what is called Title II benefits. So it's not just disability, but it also includes survivor's benefits and retirement benefits. So at some point you could be receiving disability benefits, but then you could become the age of retirement, which right now is 67. You can qualify for those retirement benefits if you want to take them earlier at a penalty. Now, this is just a little caveat. When you are receiving SSI benefits for disability and you turn the age of 62, even though that is before technically the full retirement age of 67, because it's a needs-based program, they are going to automatically roll you over to any Social Security retirement that you might be eligible for, because they'd rather you be receiving benefits on your own earnings record than be getting this needs-based resource. Okay, so what are overpayments? Overpayments are when Social Security has paid more to you than the amount that you were owed. And this occurs for a few reasons. They may have failed to impose certain deductions to your benefits that they should have. They may have meant to suspend your benefits or reduce them for whatever reason, which we'll talk about. Or it can be because they terminated your benefits and they continue to pay you after past the time. The other thing is that an overpayment can also occur due to a Social Security error. So, for example, Jessica James, her insurance benefit amount should have been $525 a month. However, what they entered in their system was $552 a month. So each month that they paid her $552 instead of the $525 that they should have been means that that was a month that she was overpaid, and they will send you a notice stating whatever the total amount of time was that occurred, and the difference between what they paid to you and what they should have paid to you, and that's what will be what you owe to Social Security. So once they determine that they overpaid you, that amount actually becomes a debt owed to the United States government. And so for that reason, they can garnish it from your tax refund, or they will withhold it from your benefits if you're receiving benefits currently. Question?
Are you allowed, and do they allow you to make that up in payments?
Yes. Well, what they will try to do first is if you're already currently receiving benefits, they'll just try to withhold a percentage of your benefit towards paying back that overpayment. So for example, if you're receiving SSI benefits, they'll take 10% of your check. So if you were getting $967, they would take $96.70 every month to pay back whatever the total of the overpayment is. And we can talk about some options that you have towards the end about if that amount is too high coming out of your benefit amount, or if you don't agree, and all of your appeal rights in regards to that. With your Title II benefits, which is disability, retirement, or survivor's benefits, it changes. They can sometimes withhold up to 50% of your check to pay it back. I know the new administration is trying to increase how much they can withhold towards these overpayments, because they're really trying to recoup any money out there that they possibly can right now. So unfortunately, that's how they would try to take back the money initially.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so when Social Security discovers that you were overpaid, they must send you an overpayment notice, okay? And it's very specific what it's supposed to entail, what it's supposed to look like, and they don't always do that. So it's always important to look out for that, because if they don't send you the notice, then it precludes them from being able to, one, start withholding from your benefits, and also it puts into question the whole notion of whether you truly were overpaid, because they haven't provided you the information that you need to figure out whether it's a valid overpayment or not. So when you receive a notice of overpayment, number one, it's going to state it in the top left-hand corner. Notice of overpayment. So you will not be confused about what they are sending you. And it's going to include all of this information. It's going to have a date. The date is really important because that dictates what deadline you have to respond to the notice. And it has to include the total amount of the overpayment, how and when it occurred. So it should put the time period. It should say it happened from blank month through year. I am going to say one of the frustrating things about overpayments with Social Security is that they discover it when they discover it. So I, for example, have a client right now who is dealing with an overpayment that occurred back in 2013. No. And we're in 2025 right now. And you know, her issue is, well, why didn't you tell me, you know, over a decade ago about this overpayment? They don't have any rhyme or reason. Just because it happened 10 years ago doesn't mean that they're time barred from trying to collect on it, or for them to, you know, take any sort of adverse action to you. They discover it whenever their computers all catch up with each other and figure out what's been going on. So that can be really frustrating. Because usually you're not receiving notices about overpayments in real time. Right. It's usually sometime in the past and sometime in the distant past, unfortunately. But it does have to tell you the month and the year, the time period that it occurred. It also has to include the monthly amount that you were overpaid, because they have to be able to tell you what you were getting and then also be able to tell you what you should have been getting, so that you can figure out, well, what's the discrepancy, what's the amount, how did you all come to this calculation essentially. It's supposed to give you a reason why a different amount was due. We're going to talk about the different reasons that they can occur. Like I said, with the months involved, it should actually provide you a breakdown. So month by month, they'll go by and say, you were receiving $967, and we should have only been paying you $700. And then it'll show you the difference, that's $200, and then say that went on for a year. So that's gonna all add up to the total of what you were overpaid at the end.
And are the amounts that drastic as it relates to the whole $200? Because that's a lot.
They can be.
Wow.
And then also if it has gone on for, say it went on for actually 5 years that they were doing it. Well, that's 200 times 12 times 5. So it can total rack up.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that repayment, and I apologize if you said this already, that repayment, I'm assuming they take a portion of what you will continue to get from your check, so you can eventually pay all that back. I'm assuming that's how that repayment works?
They could take up to 10% from your check to start paying it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do they take into consideration the bills that you have?
That's why I say $200 is a lot.
We're gonna get to that, but I'm gonna say the short answer is no. I mean that really, it sounds really harsh, but you can address your ability to pay it back with a payment plan, with a waiver, but usually that's not what they're factoring in when they figure out whether or not you've been overpaid. They're just purely looking at
The overpayment.
what they should have paid you and what they gave you at the time.
That's sad.
It is. And so also it's going to give you your appeal right. So it's going to tell you your right to file either a request for reconsideration, which we consider an appeal, within 60 days, which is why I said the date is really important, or your right to file a waiver. We're going to talk about those two things. Let me point out that the date to file your appeal is particularly important for people to look out, because sometimes they receive a notice of overpayment and they just don't do anything with it. They kind of feel like it's just notifying them that they were overpaid, and maybe they don't know what adverse action will be taken against them because they don't really read through the letter. It's important to always read through any notices you're getting through from Social Security. Don't just ignore it. Don't just throw it away. Be thorough with it, because it tells you a lot of information that people overlook that can be really detrimental to you in the long run. If you miss that deadline, you bar yourself from being able to file an appeal on the overpayment. So you limit your options in terms of how you can resolve the issue, and the only way that you can get over that is to have some sort of good cause. And I'm just gonna be honest, Social Security has never been super lenient with providing good cause rationale for filing appeals late, but they're even less so now. So I would say, absent being hospitalized for the whole 60 days, being in a coma, being maybe if you are mentally impaired or have some sort of other issue that you can prove that medically prevented you from filing the appeal, that could be something. But other than that, there's not a lot of good cause that you can have for filing it. And like I said, even if you were hospitalized for 30 days, they're gonna say, well, why didn't you file it in the other 30 days? Because you had 60 plus 5 days mail time. So they assume that you received it 5 days after the date stated on the letter. So technically, I don't advise clients to do the whole 65 days, but you do technically have 65 days from the date rather than 60 days, if that makes sense.
It does. I would assume that a lot of older people, amen, like the Miss Fontenot's of the world, sadly, they're probably not going to read the notifications that they get. So when this kind of thing happens, you know, I would have to assume that the percentage of older people are affected
Yes.
because they don't read
Yes.
these mailings. So
Or they don't drive.
or they don't drive. Yeah, they're
Or they don't receive the notice in time.
yeah.
Now that's
That would be the problem.
and that's an issue. And good cause can be established for saying, "Hey, I never got this notice that you sent," and then it is up to Social Security to provide you a copy and tell you what address they sent it to, when they sent it. Obviously, the mail can be, you know, so it can be a fact, you know, a case by case fact determination about whether you actually received it or not. But to be honest, if the address that they sent it to is your current address on file,
Right.
then the assumption is that
You got it.
you got it.
Yeah.
So and it's really hard to get over that.
So I'm
that
assuming for older
presumption.
people not reading it, that's just
It's
yeah.
it's kind of, they, like I said, they don't have a lot of lenience because they just say, well, we sent it to you and this is what it said, and so you have to be able to prove that there's some extenuating circumstances
Right.
why you could not read and comprehend what it was saying and you didn't understand. I do think that, you know, when you go into the office in person as an older person,
Mhm.
sometimes you can find a representative that can be, you know, show some compassion and
Yeah.
different things like that, but you can't always count on that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and help just being able, if you are older, just being able to get to the office.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially because they've actually, with this new administration, they've closed so many
Yeah.
offices.
Yeah.
And so people used to have an office that might have been right in their backyard,
Mhm.
and now they have to drive to a farther location. Wait times are longer. There's just
Yeah.
a lot of barriers
If
in
they
place.
drive.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But all of those things can be argued.
Mhm.
It's just about who's making the final decision.
Okay.
And that's not fair.
Yeah. And so, like I said, if you do not receive this notice of overpayment, you need to file an appeal right away regarding their failure to provide the notice, because they need to give you an explanation before they're going to start trying to withhold any of your
Mhm.
benefits from you.
Right.
You can't agree that you were overpaid or not if you don't know what it happened,
Right.
what the reason is for it. The other thing is that once you file the appeal, they have to stop their recovery efforts until they provide you an explanation and give you an opportunity to decide how to respond to it. They're not allowed to collect the overpayment amount from your benefits unless the proper notice is sent, and if they do so, they're supposed to pay back the money that they've already withheld until the notice is sent. I'm just gonna say that does not always happen with Social Security.
Yep.
So say they said that they sent you a notice, and they've already started taking 10% from your check
Mhm.
for the past few months. Technically, when you file that appeal or file some sort of request for an explanation, they're supposed to give you all of the money back that they've already taken.
Oh, wow.
Because that was their duty first.
Sure.
Trying to get that money back is another story once it's
Yeah.
already been gone, which is why the best thing I can advise you is just look out for notices like that and respond as soon as you can.
Are overpayments rare? Is that a?
No, they're
Just common.
actually very common, especially lately. They're, like I said, I think they're trying to recoup a lot of money out there
Mhm.
back into the system, and so they're kind of sending out these notices left and right. Like I said, about something happened over a decade ago
Yeah,
to people. So
But and you could only, one would only assume that the overpayment has to be on their end since they're making the payments. If you overpaid me, it's not my fault. But since you did that and you caught this error,
well, we'll get to the fault
okay.
part.
Lord have mercy. Okay.
What's the percentage of what they reap?
The percentage for SSI benefits, because it's a needs-based program, they'll only take 10% of your check.
No. What's the percentage
Uh-huh.
of them recouping this money?
As far as their success rate,
Yes.
How
Oh.
successful are they? I would think very.
Well, vary if you're currently getting benefits.
Yeah.
Because they'll send you the notice and they'll basically just start taking the money out of your check.
Right, and you like, what the?
Right. A lot of times, like I said, before you even get a chance to respond or have gotten the notice, they've already put it into their system to start taking the money back.
Wow.
So if you're getting benefits, it's going to be almost instant that they start it. If you're not still receiving benefits, that's a whole nother issue because, like I said, all they can do is garnish it from your tax return. And then say you weren't on benefits at one point, but then you go to be on benefits again in the future, they'll take that money back before they start paying you out sometimes.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's...
That's tough.
Like I said, you want to avoid overpayments at all costs because they're very tricky situations to get out of.
How do you avoid something that you don't have control over?
I'm going to get to it.
I'm gonna be quiet. Stop asking questions.
Like I said, okay, so they have to stop withholding until they send, until they either provide the notice, or if you've already filed an appeal because you did get the notice, once you file the appeal, they're supposed to stop withholding until they process the appeal and a decision is made. So either way, you taking action is supposed to stop whatever they're doing until you can work your way through whether or not this is even a valid overpayment, because a lot of times they're not, sometimes they are.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example of improper notices because these are notices that they sometimes send instead of an overpayment notice, and that changes what they're allowed to do. So they'll send you something that says important information, where they tell you that you received more than you were supposed to. But this is not a notice of overpayment, so it does not provide you that actual true explanation and breakdown and notice of your rights in regards to it. And so the date of your important information, that doesn't start your deadline to appeal. So that's just something to always look out. If you get the important information after you've received the notice of overpayment, okay, that's a separate issue. But a lot of times people say, well, I never received a notice of overpayment, but I did get this notice of important information. Not the same thing. Same thing with the notice of change in benefits. They'll tell you they paid you too much in benefits, and they'll give you the breakdown. But again, it's not a notice of overpayment. Social Security, they don't always send out the overpayment notice. It really is a fact. And if they don't send it, then, that is something that you really need to dispute because, like I said, that is their requirement to do if they want to start withholding or, collecting back on your benefits at that point. Okay, so there are two reasons that you can be overpaid. You can be overpaid for medical reasons and you can be overpaid for non-medical reasons, depending on what type of benefits that you're receiving. So say you are receiving disability benefits, either Social Security disability or SSI disability. The reason that you could become overpaid is because you were receiving benefits at one point and Social Security determined that you're no longer medically eligible. So they went to stop your benefits, said you medically improved, you're not as severely ill as you were when you first started getting these benefits, and so they give you a date that your disability ended. If they paid you past the time that they determined that your disability ended, whatever time period that they paid you, that's the time period that they will say you were overpaid. For non-medical reasons, this happens when you're getting benefits and Social Security has determined that you have additional resources or income that was not being counted, or an error was made by Social Security, but they continued paying you past that time. So that's how those two overpayments occur. The specific reasons for being overpaid when it comes to a medical reason. So if you receive a notice saying that you're no longer medically eligible for benefits for either program, then you have the option to request what's called continued benefits or statutory benefit payments while your appeal is pending. If you decide to pursue an appeal and say, no, I'm still disabled and I want to keep receiving benefits, they do give you an option to file a request for continued benefits within 10 days, 15 total with the 5 days mail time, and they will continue paying you throughout your appeal. So you might be going through the appeal process to determine whether you're still disabled. It could be a year or longer. All of that time period that they've paid you for a year, and then say at the end they determine, no, you're no longer medically eligible and we're deciding you're no longer disabled. Well, they will say at that point that, well, we paid you for 2 years while we decided this case, and so for that reason you were overpaid 2 years. There are really a lot more an easier way to resolve that issue, because again, you had a good faith effort, good faith belief that you were still disabled, and you pursued your appeal all the way through the end. So your first appeal, your administrative law judge hearing, etc. And so those kinds of situations, you might be eligible for a waiver and actually be able to get it approved.
Are these people physicians?
I'm sorry?
Are these people doctors
They-
that are making these decisions?
Well, when they cease your benefits for medical reasons, they do send you to a consultative exam, and that is a doctor that's technically supposed to be a third party, but it is through Social Security, and they are the ones who evaluate your disability to determine whether you're still eligible. So at that point, when you get into those situations, it's up to you to provide the medical records from your physicians that actually are your treating physicians and be able to establish that you're still disabled. And so, like I said, if you're successful in that, then you're not going to be overpaid all that time you got the continued benefits. It's just if they determine at the end, after the appeal process, that you're no longer disabled, they are going to ask for any money that they paid you past when they determined you were no longer eligible.
Is it a foregone conclusion that since you're going to the doctor that they are sending you to, that they're going to side on the side of the Social Security more often than not? I mean,
it does happen more often than not. I've very rarely seen where their doctors find that the person is still disabled. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
Even though, and a lot of times too, their evaluations are conflicting between what you're actually seeing when you're dealing with the person, and what their report indicates that, oh, well, they're no longer disabled, and it's like, but your notes indicate that this person has, X, Y, and Z wrong with them.
Yeah.
You can clearly see that when you speak to them, but still you're saying they can go to work. So yes, that's kind of their role with Social Security is to side with them usually. That's how it
And I would
goes.
assume that's where you guys.
Yes,
yeah,
and we do help people whose benefits are being ceased for medical improvement all the time. And we see it through all the way through the administrative law judge level, and sometimes past that if we're not successful. So like I said, really, this is a lot of information, but the most important takeaway from this is that as long as you pursue your appeal all the way through, they're not going to determine that you're overpaid. So, like I said, it's important that if you are going to pursue the appeal, that you're going to, do it all the way through the end, just so that you don't kind of have that issue at the end. Okay, these are the non-medical reasons why you can be overpaid. So specifically for Social Security or for SSI overpayments, a lot of the reasons are because of in-kind support and maintenance issues. Because it's a needs-based benefit, they do not offer some of the same benefits that you have when you're receiving SSDI benefits. So, for example, there's no trial work period like that you have with SSDI benefits. So there's no period of time where you're allowed to work and make a significant amount of money and it not be counted against you in terms of qualifying for your monthly benefit. There is the benefit amount, again, is determined by these Social Security calculations. I really can't even tell you exactly how they come up with the number because it's very complicated how they can compute your household size, your income expenses, and to determine how much you're actually eligible for each month. But I will say, if you're receiving this needs-based benefit and you're working even really a small amount of time, it likely will be counted against you, and it can reduce how much you're supposed to be being paid. So like I said, that's the example of getting $967, but them determining through their calculations with your work and all these other things that you really were only supposed to be getting $500 or $700, and that being where your overpayment amount comes in. In addition, with SSI, there's the resource limit. So again, you have the $2,000 limit for individual, $3,000 for a couple. So again, if you have, 2 extra vehicles and the total of those vehicles is, $3,500, okay, then you're over the resource limit by $1,500. Every month that you have those 2 vehicles is a month that you were not entitled to your SSI, and so they'll find you were overpaid by sometimes the full benefit amount that you received that month. So, yes.
What if someone gives you that extra vehicle?
It should not be in your name.
Amen. Gotta work the system, baby.
I probably shouldn't say that, but I have to say that. They have knowledge of the property and the assets that are in your name.
Right.
So if it's not in your name and you just happen to be driving it, it's not like they're gonna know.
Right.
So that's where the issue comes in. And again, with the bank accounts too. Having multiple bank accounts in your name with resources spread out, having property in your name, all of those kinds of things. I'm not trying to tell you how to game the system. I'm just telling you that is how they're going to discover all of those things, and you can take what you will from that.
Be smart.
In regards to your SSDI overpayments, how those happen for non-medical reasons are, let me say, the difference between SSDI and SSI is that because it's not a needs-based program, because it's based on your actual earnings, you do have some more rights when it comes to your ability to work and still qualify for benefits. So, for example, you have a period of what's called a trial work period where for 9 months in a rolling 6-month period, so within 5 years, you are able to work as much as you want and make as much as you want in 9 months. And each of those 9 months, they do not count that income against you for purposes of qualifying for benefits. So that's one benefit to you, but after that 9 months expires, then they are going to start counting whatever additional income you have against you in terms of qualifying for benefits. So what you have is called substantial gainful activity. And those amounts change every year. They increase little by little. But for this year, for people who are blind, say they were working, they are allowed to make $2,700 a month and still qualify for whatever their monthly benefit is. But if they make $1 over that $2,700, that means they were not eligible for their benefit that month. And again, they will determine that you were overpaid that month. If you are a non-blind individual, the monthly SGA amount is $1,620. So $1,620 is the max that you can make before you are cut off for the whole month. And that actually is a very unfair thing, because the truth of the matter is most people are not getting a super high amount of SSDI benefits, right? So the reason why they go to work is because they're trying to supplement their income. They might be only getting, let's say $1,300 a month. in SSDI, which is a very low amount of money to be able to live on in our society right now. So they're going to work to make $1,620. So that brings them up to what, about almost $3,000 a month, which again is still not that much depending on what your expenses are. And then because you made $1,625 in that month, they want to cut you off of the whole $1,300 that you have. And that's just, I mean, it have to call a spade a spade. That's just very unfair and unfortunate. But those are the program rules.
So it is basically, on that note, on that, 9 months, trial period, they say that you could, you could work and they're not gonna pull you much. And then afterwards, they come back, just leave it alone.
Right.
Don't even.
It makes a lot of people say, well, I'm just
They
not
forget,
gonna.
cause see, it's nothing but, that and nothing but a trick. And nothing but a trick. You have
Corruption.
to,
Corruption.
exactly.
I'm just curious, so most of what you presented is related, associated with Social Security benefits for the disability side.
Yes,
of
yes.
Security. Now, when you compare this to general Social Security,
Right, then that's different. So when you're getting retirement benefits or survivor's benefits, you do not have the same issues when it comes to working. So retirement, you can collect retirement and you can work as much as you want on the side, and that's not going to be held against you for overpayment. That is a good point to make. So this is just regarding SSDI. When it comes to work and reasons why you could become overpaid. For retirement, there is no reason that you could become overpaid. There's no resource limit for Title II benefits, so you could have as much in your bank account, because again, they're kind of giving you that benefit because you, like I said, you've paid into the system and it's the money that you've earned and that you're entitled to. So for that reason, yeah, to your point, this does not apply for those programs, which is good to know, right? And then, like I said, no resource limit. So that's not a reason why you're going to be overpaid for SSDI. So as long as, you're not working over the SGA, you can have $10,000 in your bank account and as much cars as you want, and you're still going to qualify for SSDI, and it's not going to be an issue. Okay, so this is what you would do if you receive an overpayment notice and you don't agree that you were overpaid, or if you dispute the amount, because sometimes Social Security, well, a lot of times, they might have incorrect information. So they could say that you were overpaid for 2 years, but you have some sort of proof to say, okay, I know at one time period I did have excess resources or I did work too much, but this other time period I didn't. And because of that reason, you're saying, I don't agree that I was overpaid, and you want to file an appeal. So the first appeal is called a request for reconsideration. There's a specific form that you're supposed to complete in order to file that and put it on record with Social Security so that it can be processed. Everything with Social Security, I would advise to put it needs to be in writing. A lot of times people call over the phone and you're taking a chance because you're probably not going to get back to that representative that you talked to and say, well, on Tuesday I talked to Jane, and they're gonna be like, who's Jane? We don't have a Jane who works here, And so because of the timeline, you want to make sure you put it in writing so that you have a receipt and record. I would say, and don't just drop it in the Dropbox, because again, it can get lost. Fax it so you have a fax confirmation. Hand it in person. Get them to make a copy. Write their name or rep ID and date so that is your receipt to show that you filed it, or send it certified mail. Always get a receipt with Social Security. I'm sorry?
Timestamp.
Something. A date, stamp.
Come on. When you take it in, make sure they stamp it.
Yeah, they can make a...
Sometimes
Yeah.
they'll let you come in and say, okay, thank you.
Yes, and
But
they'll
then-
tell you just to put in the Dropbox. No, say...
When you come back, when you say no, I need a stamp receipt.
Yes, I need
And
to
then they
talk
get
to
like
somebody.
crazy. I say, but no, give you a stamp receipt.
Absolutely. Don't let them, yeah, because they will. Just to get, and you know, sometimes with the lines being so long and how long the wait times are, you go in there and you want to do that too. You're just like, oh, I don't feel like waiting. Let me just put it in the Dropbox. Don't do it. You might pay for it later. So, meet with somebody face to face and get your receipt, so showing when you filed it. The information on the form, it's pretty straightforward. It's mainly demographic information, your name, your social security number, a brief description of the issue being appealed. So make sure that you're just specific. Don't just say, I don't agree with the letter that I sent. Just say, if it's an overpayment notice, I was not overpaid because I didn't have that income or I didn't have those resources. Just something short and sweet to the point, but be specific about your issue. Like I said, that's with the reason that you disagree with them. And then they give you options to mark what type of appeal or process that you want to go through. I would just say to always go through the formal conference, because that always gives you a chance to be able to meet and speak with the representative. The case review means that they will just look in your file and reevaluate and make a decision, which is probably not going to go in your favor, because whatever information they have is why they're saying that you were overpaid. The informal conference and formal conference, there's not a huge difference, but like I said, I just like to choose formal conference because it's going to give you an opportunity to meet with the representative, go through your case file, and like look at what information they have, why they're making the decision that they're making. Then you can sign it, which is optional, but if not, just make sure that you put your name, mailing address, telephone number, and the date, because like I said, that's important with the deadline. Okay, we talked about why that deadline, that 60 days is so important, because otherwise you're going to have to provide good cause for why it wasn't filed on time. Okay, say that you file the first appeal, the request for reconsideration, and it is not successful. You still have an opportunity to continue to pursue it. You would file what's called a request for hearing by administrative law judge, and that's with this form HA 501. Looks just like this, and again, it's the same information that you would have filled out on that first appeal. Name, social security number, reason, and then specifically they do ask if you have additional evidence to submit. Let's say that this is an issue regarding wages, and they're saying that you work too much. Well, that's where you would be able to provide your pay stubs from the time period that they said you were overpaid, to show, okay, you all said I was making SGA or making X, Y, and Z amount, but I wasn't making any amount of money, or I wasn't even working at that time. Whatever the case might be, any evidence to support your appeal, that's where you can provide information about that. And then you can mark that you want to appear at the hearing. Always advise you to appear at any hearing that you have for yourself in person, even though they do give you the option to waive your right to appear. And then again, sign it, put your demographic information on, and file it. And at that point, what they will do is have an administrative law judge hearing. And I actually did recently have a Social Security overpayment of $33,000 that we had to take all the way up to the ALJ level, because we filed a request for reconsideration. They told us it was not filed on time. We had to provide good cause for why it was filed late, which really was just, hey, we have our proof right here where it was faxed in on the date that we were supposed to. You all didn't process it, so for that good cause reason, they had to grant the further appeal process. Still denied it, even with all of the evidence that we had. My client actually was the victim of identity theft. Somebody had been working under her social security number at all of these different jobs that she really never had worked at. And for that reason, they were attributing wages to her that she never made herself. So we went all the way up to the ALJ hearing. We had 3 administrative law judge hearings, which is very rare because the judge just kept asking us for more and more and more information about proof that she was a victim of identity theft, and also proof that she wasn't working at these jobs, which sometimes it was hard to get a statement from the job saying, well, this person didn't work for us because they had her social security number on file. At any rate, finally, after 5 years that I had this client, they finally agreed to waive the overpayment. And so that's a pretty long, arduous process, but we did get it done for her, and obviously she's very, very grateful. And that's only one of the issues she's dealing with, being the victim of identity theft. So yeah.
And you said it was $33,000?
Yes.
Over what period of time?
Over the course of like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Lord, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Extensive.
And she hadn't even
Crazy.
been working because she had been injured on the job, and so she had been receiving workers' compensation for maybe the past like 2 or 3 years. She wasn't even getting benefits, and they were still attributing all of this money and wages and income to her. It was a mess.
Wow.
So that's how long it can take as well with the overpayments. But at any rate, at least at the administrative law judge hearing, you have an opportunity to present evidence, witnesses if necessary. And you also get to review your file before the hearing. So like I said, you get to see what's in there, what they're using to make their decision. And it's an informal type of hearing. They make an audio recording. You can also ask for the recording of the hearing, and then the judge is going to send you, and if you have a representative, a copy of the hearing decision.
If I might just ask a general question.
Yeah.
This meeting that you guys are hosting today, is this y'all's outreach to the community, and you do this weekly, or are you a guest this week for somebody else who's holding this spot here? Because it's my first one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
a guest here this week.
Yeah,
right?
she's a guest this week. This is technically, when I tell you, officially called Thursday morning breakfast.
Yes.
Where every Thursday morning we invite people in to have breakfast and to hear from a private or public sector subject matter expert
Yes.
on different things.
Okay.
So she works for a nonprofit,
Nonprofit.
called Lone Star Legal Aid,
Okay.
and for 75 years
Yes.
they've been doing this kind of work.
Beautiful.
She was our first speaker for Lone Star Legal Aid,
Okay.
and Ms. Guidry is the second, but they have how many lawyers?
Oh, we have 300 staff. I can't specify how many.
They got a bunch of lawyers that cover a bunch of information.
Wow.
So my goal is to
They
bring.
helped me get my child support custody
There you go.
modification.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
there you go.
Because I'm a veteran.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Yeah.
we have a veterans unit.
Yeah. So
a
the
family
point is
unit.
that they got subject matter experts that
Okay.
people need to know about.
Exactly.
But she's not the only entity. Lone Star Legal Aid is not the only entity. There's a lot of good
Yeah.
that goes on in the city that for whatever reason people don't know about.
Right.
So we try to be the bridge between, as I said earlier, the do-gooders
Yeah.
and those that need the good to be done.
Okay.
So every
When you
Thursday
say
morning
we-
we're here talking.
Now, who's the we? You guys. Who are you?
My organization is called the Grow for Care Alliance.
The who?
Grow, Grow,
Uh-huh.
the number 4,
Okay.
Care, Care.
Okay.
And they're both acronyms, Alliance.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to build a network
Yes.
of organizations, individuals, people who are willing to help the community be better
Yes.
by being in touch with the do-gooders, if you will.
Great.
And,
Great.
and especially now with this administration, since
Yes.
so many things are being attacked, like
Yes.
the social safety net.
Yes.
You know, we need to make sure that the community, our veterans, our elderly, if the community doesn't circle the wagons, if you will,
Right.
with the proper ammunition, if you will,
Yes, sir.
then we're going to get roughshod run over, because that's
Right.
what happens to
Okay.
poor and impoverished people.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, because I'm just, I got information that was good about what was happening,
Yep.
but I took it to be something more sort of guys who are candidates for political, you know,
Sure.
in their careers, and they're coming out to deal with the community about issues about getting, support, more people voting, or just informed about the, the political issues that we need to
Yes,
deal
sir.
with.
Yeah.
Especially with these things happening from the administrative of the,
Yeah.
from the, White House
On down,
and all
yes,
this
sir.
MAGA stuff going
Yep.
on. So, all right. But
Yeah,
it's-
and we've been focused on bringing the politicians out because they're running for office.
Right.
And all of this redrawing of these lines,
Yes.
It's a big deal. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't change her reality and what she does.
Right.
Because he, as a veteran, is going to be affected no matter what the lines look like because it's a different issue.
Gotcha.
So, we bring out subject matter experts, private, public, people from the city, people from the port, nonprofits, because again, poor people have always been attacked by those that have power and money.
No doubt.
And if we don't align ourselves with people who can push back, I don't know what somebody would do if they can't go to a Lone Star Legal Aid. This is a serious issue for a lot of people.
Wonderful.
But again, that's just one side of it.
That's great
Yeah, there's a
value,
lot.
yes, okay, that helps me understand, give me a, kind
Yes, sir.
of
Yes, sir.
perspective, okay, what's going on
Yeah,
here.
and everything I know, she taught me.
Very good.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. So if you are not successful at the administrative law judge level, you can still pursue your appeal through the appeal council review. That's if you disagree with the judge's decision. There's another form for that. So there's a whole bunch of forms of Social Security that you can fill out. The request for review of the hearing decision. And again, the deadline is always 60 days plus the 5 days mailing time. The appeals council will examine your case. They will choose to either grant, deny, or dismiss your request for review. I will tell you that if they grant your request for review, they just remand it back to the same judge who made the original decision. So always make sure that you come in with some, evidence that was not considered for whatever reason, or just they usually, let me say, that the reason why they would have grant a request for review after the administrative law judge decision is for a technicality, some error that the judge made in making the decision, kind of like how the criminal justice system works. It's not because you go in and say, well, the jury got it wrong. You say, well, the judge erred in this way, or the jury instructions were incorrect, or something like that. So usually when you get to an appeal of that level, it's for a technicality. It's not just because you don't agree with what the judge's decision
So you
was.
can't request a new judge, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry?
You can't request a new judge.
No, that's unfortunately not how it goes.
I don't like this judge.
Right, exactly. I have had a case that got remanded back to the same judge for a medical cessation issue where they were determining he was no longer medically eligible, and the judge did finally rule in our favor, even though she had previously not. So it happens. It can happen, yeah. And so, like I said, this is the appeals council. Again, they're not going to send you that overpayment notice as long as you're pursuing the appeal all the way through. Once you will have, accepted the judge's decision and you choose not to file the appeal council review, or you don't do it timely, that's when you're going to get that notice saying, whatever we paid you through this whole entire appeal process, now you owe it back to us.
You said that twice, appeal the process all the way through.
Yes.
I'm assuming you said that twice, at least twice, because people don't go all the way through.
Sometimes they don't. And it's just to let you know when that overpayment notice is going to be triggered, when you're getting the benefits continue through the appeal process.
Okay.
And then also, it becomes important, and when I'll get to that, why it also is important to pursue it all the way through. Lastly, if your appeals counsel is also, your request for review is denied, you can take your Social Security case up to federal court. That's very rare in our experience that we pursue things through federal court. But again, that's not something that you can do on your own. The other appeals process, even though you might want to have a representative, it's not required. You can file the first appeal, the request for the administrative law judge hearing. You could be at the administrative law judge hearing by yourself. You don't have to have a representative, but it can be helpful just to be able to craft together your argument and make sure that you're providing the right information. I know for my client, for example, with the $33,000, it's not that she couldn't advocate for herself, but it was very helpful for me to be there, to be able to explain the process to her, to meticulously organize and gather what information she needed to really help be successful in that outcome. So I would say it might not have gone that way if she did not have an attorney in that situation.
I don't know how it could have gone that way if she didn't have an attorney. Hell, that's pretty simple.
Right.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to, but I'm just saying. Okay, so this is, the federal court is finally like kind of the last thing. Okay, so the reason why it is important to pursue your appeal all the way through is if you don't file an appeal, say you were time barred from the appeal, or because say you're admitting that you were overpaid because actually you were making the SGA amount or you did have the excess resources, but you still don't want to pay it back, it's too significant of an amount, or there's, whatever reason, you can file what's called a waiver. And this is the form to file the waiver. And the big difference between the waiver and the appeal is that the waiver can be filed at any time, so it does not have to be filed within 60 days. It can be filed a year after they've been collecting. I don't know why you would wait that long, but you can technically, okay? Now, the issue with the waiver is that you have to satisfy two elements for them to waive and approve your waiver request. You have to prove it was not your fault and that you can't afford to pay it back. So both elements have to be met. So say there's only one. You've established that it wasn't your fault, but they determined you can pay it back. Well, then they're not going to approve your waiver, which I know sounds really crazy, but it has to be those two things together. The thing with the no fault, where the issue comes in with pursuing the appeal, is that if you have your good faith pursuit of appeal, so say it's for a medical cessation reason that you have the overpayment, and you get the requested continued benefits, the statutory benefits in the interim. When you receive your adverse decision that still says you are no longer disabled, they're going to tell you that you were overpaid for all that time period. That's a good opportunity to file the waiver because number one, at that point, you've been cut off of your benefits because they're saying you're no longer medically eligible. Well, that's a really good reason why you can't afford to pay it back because now you've lost your monthly income and you might not have any income to support yourself. So that's one thing. And then in terms of no fault, the fact that you had the belief that you were disabled and you pursued your appeal all the way through shows that it's not your fault that you were overpaid. You got your continued benefits, which you were entitled to at that point. And so those are situations that are very ripe for a waiver to be approved. Now, I can't tell you how long it takes them to do that after it, but that's a lot of times what we advise clients. Even when you are unsuccessful with establishing your disability continues, you're going to have this overpayment, but we believe you would be really eligible and successful for a waiver because you meet these two elements. So that's why that's important. They are decided on a case-by-case basis, so it's always up to chance who is going to determine whether you're at fault for the overpayment or not. The fault comes in where, for example, another easy reason, an easy reason to prove it's not your fault, it was Social Security's error. They miscoded, like the lady. You were only supposed to give me $525, but you were giving me $552. I have no control over the computer system. I'm not the reason why I was overpaid. No fault. That's pretty simple, cut and dry. Another reason, your benefits were received by your payee and you were a minor child. So a lot of times children, when they're getting SSI benefits, they have their parent, their guardian, whoever being the representative payee. Children don't have any income, so most of the times the overpayment occurs it's really because of the representative payee's income. Your guardian, your mom, your grandma, whoever is your payee, it's because they had too much money or whatever the case might be. Well, as a child, you don't have any control over that. And so that's another reason why it would not be your fault in that case if you were overpaid. Another reason, you're an incompetent adult, you're getting disability benefits for some sort of mental impairment or something like that. That's another reason that it would, not be, you're not really able to, that's a good reason why you wouldn't understand the program rules, or maybe what you're reading enough to be able to know that you're supposed to report your income and resources, so that's another reason.
That's terminology, incompetent?
Incompetent, yeah.
It's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
You're an idiot, okay.
Legally incompetent, shall we
Okay,
say.
all right.
You do have a duty to report your excess resources and income timely. So for example, for SSI, if you have any resources or income within 10 days after the month of the change that occurred, that's how long you have. And that's a tricky one. I'm gonna say the rules in the paperwork you're sent do tell you that you have a responsibility to keep your resources under the $2,000 limit, and particularly for SSDI that you're not supposed to make over the SGA limits. So say you're working the amount of the SGA, and you go to tell Social Security because you don't want to be overpaid. So you're like, hey, I know I'm making $16.25. You have a responsibility to take your pay stubs up to Social Security every month that you're over that amount, because you're trying to inform them so that they don't pay you.
Right.
A lot of times that still doesn't happen though. So just because you reported it doesn't mean that they stop your check-in time. But that would be a good argument to make for the waiver, to say, hey, here's where I brought you, my pay stubs X, Y, and Z months to stop my check.
Right.
You guys kept paying me, so it's not my fault now that I'm overpaid.
Sure.
So that's something that you can argue. I'm gonna say it's very rare that people report their wages or their resources, because a lot of times they just don't know they're even supposed to.
Right. But it fundamentally, the error is always on this end, because they're the ones that's doing the tabulation.
Yeah. Yes and no. Let me say it is, because their computer is the one that's going to issue the payments.
Right.
But the issue is always going to be whether you did your duty on your end to let them know though.
Okay.
And so like I said, that's where it helps to be familiar with the program rules and what your responsibilities are. I have a client who has an overpayment situation, and we went in to talk with the Social Security representative and told them, hey, well, she was working this amount of money or this amount of time and making this amount of money. And he said, well, you were supposed to tell us about it. Oh, well, I didn't know. He said, this is where it says it on this paper.
Right.
So that's...
You got to read the fine print. Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what they say, ignorance of the law is no defense.
That's right.
And so, like I said, that's, unless you are a child or you are, mentally disabled, they're not gonna say that just because you did not read the fine print that you didn't know. That's not usually gonna be a good enough reason.
Right, quick question.
Yeah.
What if they send you a letter? Okay, I received a letter about sometime last year, and I knew it was nothing but the trick. Saying that I was working. I like where I know my Social Security number is not out there showing that I'm working. And then I filled out the paperwork, stating that 000. Then it came back and said, okay, thank you. But what was he saying? How come I received that letter?
What was
It was a letter stating, questioning, was I working?
I don't know. I mean, maybe they had some information that you were.
Was it an official letter or was it fraud?
It was from Social Security.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I mean, because there are some fraudulent things happening as well.
I had called.
You called. Okay,
I had
good.
to
Okay.
call the person. And they said, it was just a random thing that they were just doing.
Yeah.
And since and then I was talking to someone else to say, well, it just could be just that they could be just trying to kick you off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, maybe, and I mean, there are a lot of issues with people's social security numbers being used too,
Yeah.
so.
I got mine on lockdown, so.
Another no fault is if you were working that trial work period, it was the 9 months.
See, I've been thinking about that, but like I told you earlier, that's nothing but a tree. And I ain't gonna do it.
So-
But, on that,
Mm-hmm.
can you work and work without using the social security number?
I don't think so.
Unless you get paid cash or something.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Money
the
under the table.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
again,
you can always work it out.
if they don't know that you're working under
Yeah, they don't
people, they
know.
don't know, but
Right.
anything time you're gonna file a W-2,
Right.
then they're gonna know.
No paper trail.
Right.
Yeah,
So if,
thank you.
so yes, but sometimes they have it wrong. They're not aware that you were working through your trial work period. It was the 9 months you were allowed to work. To pay it back. This is a tricky one because, like I said, if your benefits have been terminated, it's easier to establish. You have zero income, so how can you pay it back, right? And they also have no source to collect it from. And so also that's another thing with clients, it's like, you might be overpaid, but if you're not still getting benefits, they can't take it from you unless they're gonna take it from your tax return. So some people are like, well, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip, you
Right.
know? Now, if you have income, that's a different story because really they're going to have to see a detailed list of what your monthly expenses are versus your income, and they have to significantly outweigh. So I'm talking like $0 or a negative balance at the end of the month for them to say you can't afford it back. If they even see you have $10 left over at the end of the month, they're gonna say, well, you can give us that $10, or you're gonna at least give us 5 of it.
Yeah, right. Give us half of that.
Yeah, so it has to be like, I'm not even able to pay my bills basically because my expenses are so much compared to my income for them to be able to say you can't pay it back. So that's why waivers are not always easily granted,
Yeah.
because most people can't satisfy both of those two elements. Social Security will give you a personal conference if they don't grant your waiver request, and the personal conference is like an informal procedure before your ALJ hearing, where they will give you an opportunity to look at the file, present your case, and it's at the kind of local level, not in front of a judge, but with somebody at your local office. If you're unsuccessful, then like we said, you have another opportunity to pursue your appeal. Lastly, if you're unable to appeal due to time restraints, your appeal is not successful, or your waiver, you can always negotiate a payment plan. And so this is the form that you would use. Again, you have to provide information about your income and expenses to say, hey, I know you guys are taking 10% of my check, but I can't afford that because this is what's coming out versus what I'm receiving. So I can only give you $50 a month instead of $96 a month. They will consider it in lowering your amount. And then also, like I said, if you're not getting benefits, you can also negotiate a payment plan so that you don't jeopardize a tax return garnishment in the future. Important things to note. You can file a waiver and a reconsideration. So it does not have to be one or the other, but like I said, the appeal is specifically if you're saying you weren't overpaid, versus admitting that you were, but then being able to satisfy the elements of the waiver. But it won't hurt you to file both of them. As I established, they're not easily or quickly resolved, because Social Security does not prioritize overpayment cases. They're kind of last on their list in terms of priorities, and they don't like to really grant waivers because then they're not collecting any of their money back that they said that they paid out. So they make it really difficult. They don't address appeals and overpayments timely unless it's for a small amount and they can establish it wasn't your fault. So if it's $2,000 or less and it's clear that it was not your fault why it occurred, they can grant a waiver pretty quickly. And so this is why it's important to prevent them as much as possible by being aware of the program rules, what your responsibilities are, and making sure any changes that you have, document them and report them timely. And any information that you need about Social Security, you can find it online by searching the Program Operations Manual System. It contains all of the policies and procedures regarding everything Social Security. So if you ever have a question, that's where you can go. And here is my contact information. Like I said, overpayments are best addressed when you do have a representative, if you can. And so this is our main line. Here's my email, and that's who you can contact. And so if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that kind of concludes our presentation. You have any questions?
Yeah, now, what if, like, when you, I guess they would like say, you work and get paid, then like say privately, or you fill out a tax form.
Yeah, the W-2.
What is it?
W-2?
Yeah. Now, even though they're not taking taxes out, that's still very reported Social Security, isn't it? That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though there's some type of tax bracket somewhere.
Any like official document that you're gonna file with your Social Security number like that, you should know at some point it's gonna come back to Social Security. And it might not be right away, but that's the whole thing, is that you never find out about those overpayments in real time. It's usually months or years later sometimes. So, yeah, it's never convenient when it happens.
Yeah.
I am done. Do you
So
have
those
any
forms,
questions?
so when you fill those forms out, those tax-free, they're not tax-free, but they say, what is that form? Say that was, canvassing? Yeah, and you put out that tax form. That W.
What, 30?
I'm all done.
Oh, W9.
Yeah.
Of course, I would love to come back
It's a
sometime.
You have to, because I think your expertise in the disaster relief. I'm sorry, what you talking
Yeah,
about?
it was a
I'm sorry.
W-9.
W-2 or W-9?
Yeah.
It's a W9 that you